You know, when we think of Pearl Harbor, our minds usually go to these huge battleships and the massive scope of history. But today, we're going to zoom all the way in on a story that's incredibly personal, claustrophobic, and just completely unexpected. It's the story of one man, sent on a mission where death was a certainty, who ended up with a fate he never, ever could have prepared for. I mean, really think about that question. In a culture where dying for your country is the absolute highest honor you can achieve, what does that even mean, to fail at dying? What happens when you're supposed to be gone, but you're not? This one question would haunt a single man for the rest of his days. So to get this story, we've got to go back. It's the morning of December 7th, 1941. As part of the main attack on Pearl Harbor, Japan was also deploying a secret weapon. A very small, very elite group of men, the Special Attack Unit, was handpicked for a mission of incredible honor. A mission that was strictly a one-way trip. And this was their ride, the Kohyo-teki-class midget submarine. Now these things were not your typical subs. We're talking a cramped, two-man craft with basically one job: sneak into an enemy harbor and cause chaos. In a way, they were kind of like manned torpedoes themselves, super high risk and unbelievably dangerous. For this critical part of the attack, only 10 men were chosen. Just 10, the absolute best of the best. And one of them was a 24-year-old ensign named Kazuo Sakamaki. He and his crewmate were given one of just 5 of these subs, with orders to pilot it right into the heart of Pearl Harbor. So, of those 10 men, how many were expected to come home? 0. A big, fat 0. This was a suicide mission, plain and simple. The goal was to do as much damage as possible before dying a glorious death for the Empire. Survival wasn't just not in the plan, it would have been seen as a complete and utter failure. But here's the thing. From the very second Sakamaki sub launched from its mothership, everything that could go wrong did. This mission, which was planned down to the smallest detail, started to completely fall apart almost immediately. Just try to imagine being in that tiny metal tube. It's beyond claustrophobic. And then this sharp, biting smell of leaking battery acid starts filling what little air you have. It's dark, you're disoriented, and the very machine that's supposed to be your weapon is actively turning against you. It was just a total cascade of failure. First, their gyro compass dies. Boom, they're navigating blind. They start drifting and they slam into a coral reef, not just once but over and over. Those impacts wreck their torpedo tubes, which means their weapon is now useless. And then, the final blow. The hull cracks and the cold ocean just starts pouring in. They never even fired a single shot. They didn't even make it into the harbor. Now for Sakamaki, this wasn't just some technical problem. This was a spiritual collapse. He had failed his duty. His honor was gone. His one job was to die in battle for his emperor, and he couldn't even manage to do that. So after he and his crewmate abandoned their sinking sub, Sakamaki passed out in the water. He was supposed to be dead. But instead, a whole new chapter of his life was about to begin. A chapter defined by a title he never wanted and would consider worse than death: prisoner number 1. Just let that sink in. He woke up, not in some honored afterlife, but on a Hawaiian beach, with an American soldier standing right over him. He had failed to die. He had survived. And now he was captured. I mean, you couldn't write a more staggering contrast, could you? The plan was clear: die a hero's death. The reality? He became America's first Japanese prisoner of war in World War II. The very first one. For the rest of the war, and really for much of his life, nobody saw Sakamaki as a lucky survivor. That's not how it worked. Instead, he was forced to carry this immense psychological weight of being the first, and for a long, long time, the only one. He would later write about this torment he felt. See, of the 10 men in his midget subunit, the other 9 all died at Pearl Harbor. Back in Japan, they were celebrated as gods, as heroes. But Sakamaki lived. And in his mind, that survival wasn't a gift. It was a public, unbearable mark of shame. His entire identity was just rewritten in that moment. He was no longer Ensign Sakamaki Warrior of the Special Attack Unit. He was now prisoner of war number 1. The man who didn't die, the man who got caught. He was forced to live a life that, by all rights, should have been over on December 7th, 1941. And that's what this story really leaves us with. It forces us to look past all the strategy in the battles and ask a much deeper question. When your entire purpose, your entire sense of honor is wrapped up in the idea of a noble death,
What does it mean to live? For Kazuo Sakamaki, survival wasn't a victory. It was a lifelong sentence.